just wanted to touch base on a couple things. Something that I've begun to realize is that the past 3 years have taught me so much. Today is the last day of 2024. It is about to be 5 p.m. in about 2 minutes. And I just had a couple things I needed to get off of me. I needed to let go because I realized that these past few years, ever since I've joined adulthood, have been teaching me things and setting me up for instead of the, I'm going to talk about them. I wrote them down very quickly. So 2022, and I consider 2022 my year one. It was the year that I turned 18. It was the year that I graduated high school, the year that I enrolled into college, and subsequently got into my first relationship. Moved about 2.5 hours away from home. It was the longest amount of time I'd been away from home. The first time I had an actual real taste of freedom. And the year that I kind of opened my eyes to life. And I realized, hey, so everything that I was learning for the past 18 years, I've been in a bubble. Like, I've been kept in a bubble, which is like great to an extent because, yes, my mother did protect us. She was quite overprotective in some ways because she wanted to keep us safe, wanted to keep us from harm's way, wanted to keep us from making the same mistakes that she'd made as a child, or wanted to keep us from doing the same things or walking the same path that she did, and wanted to put us on a path that she believed was better for us. But the reason I say that was the year that I opened my eyes to life was because I realized that a lot of the things that I've been doing in years past had been according to how I wanted to be perceived instead of according to how I wanted to perceive myself. I'd been growing up and dealt with a lot of self-hate, self-loathing, and dealing with not wanting to be alive for quite a while, and it made me quite depressed for many years. I didn't start realizing these things or recognizing these things until that year 2022. Life began to open my eyes for me, practically force my eyes open so I could watch with no way to close them, if you understand what I mean. 2022 was also a year where I lost quite a few family members. Same with the year after that. I lost quite a few family members, was dealing with a lot of grief and having to come into my own grief and learn how to deal with my own grief on my own pretty much, and because I was away at college. So 2022, the lessons that it taught me, invaluable, and I pretty much journaled quite a bit throughout that entire year. So I even have a full journal that documented pretty much a lot of what had happened starting from the summer after I graduated, which was pretty nice because even though I had always been pretty into journaling and pretty into stationery, I'd never actually fully intended to document anything involving my life because I felt it unimportant. But 2022, like I said, that year opened my eyes to a lot of things that I didn't realize because I was a child, Even in college, I still felt like I was a child. I was very childish. I was 18, and that's no different than being 17. If you think about it mentally, nothing changes at all. But now, 20 years old, 2 years later, I'm coming up on 21 in a few months, I am able to recognize the things that kind of built me into who I am today, and be able to approach those things with a lot more appreciation than I had in the past. Wow! Moving on to 2023. 2023 was my year of lessons. Since the previous year, I kind of opened my eyes and was able to see things from a new lens and was able to experience all these things. Now, 2023, I'm able to kind of see those things more for what they are, and also be able to learn from the lessons that they have taught me. Sorry, I'm looking at a squirrel. Did I mention I got diagnosed with ADHD? Yes, 2023, I got diagnosed with ADHD, I got diagnosed with depression, I got diagnosed with PTSD. I still have not pursued that OCD diagnosis, but from what I know and the knowledge that I hold, I'm able to completely able to discern that that is most definitely what's been going on with me for all these years, and why my intrusive thoughts, I never realized were supposed to be a normal part of life. I used to call them my visions when I was in high school. Like I make one wrong move, I move the paper a wrong way, or something happens around me, I breathe the wrong way. All of a sudden, my whole family's on the line. That year, my year of lessons, I spiraled. I spiraled hard. The beginning of 2022, I spiraled hard. I really came into my own. I started realizing at that point, like, hey, maybe this relationship that I'm in is quite toxic. Maybe it's time for me to start moving on to different things. And I also began to realize that, hey, like, my healing journey, I have to start taking more seriously. I began really, even though I had like a roommate, I began really trying to isolate myself, because I realized that even though I love my roommate, I can't push all of my problems on someone who I'd only met a few months ago. I had to keep that to myself. I got back into therapy the year before, so I was set when it came to my emotions. I was able to actually get that out once a week. I began journaling more. I began working out a little bit more. So all of these things I'm beginning to do, I start spiraling, and through those spirals and those very, very low lows, I learn lessons and I learn things about myself, and then I lose myself once again, and I spiral once again, and that version of me that I realized I was spiraling from began to die, and once that version died, and me sprouted up and grew and grew and grew, and the cycles began to go and go and go. And those versions of me died all over again, just for me to be able to see the lessons that I needed to learn, if that makes sense. 2023 was a bit of a tough year for me, because it was the year I kind of realized, like, I know nothing about myself. I was like, I'm 19 years old, and I don't know nothing about myself. And I didn't really realize that was a phenomenon that a lot of people go through when they are that age. But I also didn't really care, because I was like, I should know about myself. I should know more. And how do you learn more? By experience. But how do you gain experience when you are confined to a dorm room, or when you are confined to a campus? You don't have a car. You can't go these places and that places. I began reading a bit more. I began talking to people a bit more. I began doing all these different things to find new ways to experience life, because I found it important for me to be able to do that and for me to live that way. So yeah, 2023, that was my year of lessons. After the semester ended, I spent the first month of summer getting a job. I got a job. Once it hits June, I'm like, I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. It's actually quite tiring. It's quite a lot on my mental health, on my emotional well-being. I'm not doing quite good when I'm with this person, and I don't want to be in that situation anymore. I couldn't handle it. It's extremely hard when you're dealing with a man-child. I'm with him, and I'm like, I don't like this. I'm free. I don't feel bad about being free either. And that was truly the best part of setting myself free from a toxic relationship. That was one of the things I had to learn, was eventually there comes a point in life where you will need to stand on your values, and you will need to stand on your principles, and you might need to set yourself free from toxic situations, and that is okay. That is exactly what I did. I said, hey, I don't need this. I don't need this, and I don't need you, and I don't want you, and I don't want you, and I don't want this. And I realized, hey, if I'm going to want a certain type of lifestyle, or a certain caliber of life, or a certain type of relationships in my life, or a certain type of this and that and that, I'm going to have to actually begin standing on my values and what I believe in. So when I broke up with him, I didn't date again. I realized, hey, I've been dating men. I'm not bisexual. I'm a lesbian. I don't like men, and I don't like what they have to offer, and I don't like what they bring to the table, and I don't want what they bring to the table, because I'm not attracted to men and I'm attracted to women. And that started an even bigger spiral of grief. But it was at the end of 2023, so now we begin to move on to 2024. 2024, I consider my year of healing. It's the year where I began to really sit down and take note of everything in my life, so I could begin my journey to emotional freedom. Let's just say that, emotional freedom. Let me start in January, as all years start. I eventually things come to a head with my roommates, and by the end of January, I moved out. We're no longer friends. They're blocked on everything. I'm blocked on everything, and I begin living a life with a bit more solitude than I had ever been used to. And I was able to actually begin sitting with myself and thinking and learning. February, I think close to the end of February, I meet a new friend. He introduces me to another new friend, and another new friend, and another new friend, and boom, just like that, I have a whole friend group to hang out with. And because this was my year of healing, I began using all the lessons that I'd learned in 2023 and all the eye-opening things that I began to see in 2022, and I began incorporating them into my healing journey, and being able to incorporate them into what I used to heal my traumas, and begin to take control and take accountability for my own mental health, because I'd realized, hey, you turn 20 in a couple months, you're going to have to do this regardless. Once I began taking control of my mental health, I began to realize that friendship ending, no matter how painful it felt for me, 1,000% needed. And by 1,000% needed, I mean 1,000% needed. That needed to be cut off right there. And I'm happy that it was cut off where it was. It's not even out of like malice or anything. Never out of malice. I'm not that kind of girl. But at a certain point, I did realize that this relationship, not that it wasn't serving me, I hate that turn of phrase, but this relationship does not do me any good because of the sort of trauma that I had been through while we had been friends. And also the difference in personality. They were two people that was like worlds apart from where I was as a person. That's not even like on a spiritual narcissism type of path, but really on I'd been through so many of these types of life experiences starting from this point. So it was, I'm gonna take these off. It was quite hard to deal with having that kind of relationship and that dynamic. And eventually I realized, hey, like, yeah, I don't have to be here. I don't have to be here. I'm still learning myself. I'm still taking my healing seriously. So after that January was over, I really began to get deep in it. And one thing I learned at the beginning of my spiritual journey in 2022 was that no matter how many dark nights of the soul you have to have, those dark nights of the soul will teach you way, way, way more than your light moments and your light workings. And that is exactly what 2024 was for me. I had multiple dark nights of the soul, and each time I learned something new. Now, I'm prosperous. It is December 31st, and I am prosperous. I've been going through the moments where I sat and I worked and I focused on healing, taught me, because that is what life is, baby girl. That is what life is. You learn so much in those quiet moments. I had deleted social media for a period of time and all these types of things. So 2024 is done. My year of healing is done. And like I said, right now I'm prosperous. Just like the end of 2022, I'm sitting there and I'm in pain, and then I move into 2023 thinking I gotta learn from this, and then from 2023 I began thinking like, oh, I've lost so much and I've learned so much, and I'm gonna carry that into 2024 so I can now focus on healing. 2025, I've already begun my transition from focusing on healing to beginning to focus on my material life. And 2025 is going to be that year. Regardless of the orange bastard in the White House and his pale, wide rib-caged Tesla truck companion, regardless of them, regardless of the rampant delusion of white supremacists, which is that white is supreme when they barely make up 7% of the global population, regardless of that delusion, regardless of people's rampant misogyny and thinking that just because you are a woman, you are less, regardless of all of that, I am prosperous. And that is the best part of 2025. 2025 is going to be my year where I do things and move a little bit more selfishly. Not even like around like familial relationships or my relationship with my girlfriend. 2025 is going to be, did I say 2024? 2025 is going to be that prosperous year where I begin to see the fruits of my labors tangentially. That is all that I have to say for today. I'm so happy I got that off my chest. Actually, I'm quite ecstatic and very grateful that I was able to get all of that out, because it had been something that has been weighing on me a bit, where I'd considered it. I'm like, these are the things. And someone just said, like, every year she reflects on the past year, and I'd never thought to just sit down and reflect. So very quickly, I began reflecting, and literally, barely a sentence for each of these, barely a sentence. 2022 was my year one, the year I opened my eyes to life, period. 2023 was my year of lessons, the year I began to spiral and learn and lose. 2024 was my year of healing, the year I used the lessons learned from the previous years to begin healing my traumas and taking control of my mental health. And when I tell you I was down bad for all of it, I mean it. But that's not the point. That's not the point at all. The point is I made it through. The point is I learned to prosper regardless. The point is I persevered and got back through that perseverance. I got deeper and deeper, and I enjoyed it. if you would like another video talking more in depth on everything that I spoke about today, please do let me know. I do quite enjoy feedback. I quite enjoy feedback. I quite enjoy learning other points of views, and I'm happy that I get to experience life from a healed perspective for the first time. Truly, for one of the first times out of my 20 years of living. When I say I was depressed and anxious, 9 years old, every morning waking up with such bad anxiety that I had IBS, had to get on medication to help me eat, had to get on medication for depression. Eventually you begin to feel like you will be left behind. And this journey taught me, even if you are left behind, as long as you don't leave yourself behind, you will be okay. Happy New Year.
Yeah.